All right, here we are, episode 44, Indie
Hello.
Creator Exchange with Pat O'Malley. Pat, how are you doing this morning? You're out in Hollywood, California, is that correct, sir?
I am kind of. I'm in Ventura, so we just moved
Okay.
out of Hollywood last year, but close enough.
Okay.
Nice. Thank you.
Welcome and welcome to everybody watching. So we met Pat at the IC3, the what is it? The international? No, the independent
Indie Comics Creator Con.
independent comic creator con. We just call it IC3. Um,
Yeah,
and we were very impressed with your graphic novel. I had
same.
seen this in my local shop. I had seen this on the shelves. I flipped through it, and you could mistake it for like an Image comic because it was among all the Image comics, and I think they even put it in the grab bags with the Image comics. I think I ended up with one when I bought like a mystery 10-pack. But you are an independent, right? This is Punch
Punch,
Publishing.
yeah, Punch Publishing is just my own kind of production house that just so I can make comics myself and put them out however I need to.
Right.
Um,
And this is a very high quality book. We like the printing, the presentation is great. We're going to talk about everything. We're going to talk about the art, talk about the process, but we like to start these out by asking you to go back in time and take us back to little Pat when you're just a kid, an impressionable young kid. And what is your first like awareness of the comic world? What were you reading? What did you get your hands on? How did it all start?
okay, so I had two ends to the comic world, and I think both are pretty crucial to building up my love for comics. So I had two uncles on both sides of my mom's side and my dad's side. And one uncle would take me to, the gas stations and I would grab something off the spinner rack,
Yeah.
whether it was Spawn or so I remember grabbing like a Howard the Duck, Gambit, and Spider-Man crossover book, which is just a weird book, but I still have it. Um, and then my other uncle kind of gave me his Silver Age collection, and I was like pretty young, but this contained Ditko Spider-Man, Jack Kirby Fantastic Four, like Iron Man Silver Surfer, Iron Man Submariner crossover, Silver Surfer One. So like some big books that at the time I had no idea like the impact these books had. And so I kept them. And as I got older, I realized, oh man, this is like the holy grail of comics I kind of have here. And that just influenced, my love for some of the older stuff. And I started building up his collection on my own. I kind of went back and started picking up books that he was missing, some keys that he might have skipped. So those were like the two ways I kind of got into comics at an early age. And then I took a big break from comics, and the book that brought me back was 30 Days of Night by Steve Niles and Ben Templesmith. I didn't realize comics could do that. I didn't know you could like go all the way into horror like that. So once I kind of read that when I was in maybe early high school, I was like, I became addicted again, and I started looking for the weird stuff, the stuff that wasn't Marvel and DC, and like kind of trying to find the stories that maybe I would be more interested in telling. Because I love superheroes, but it's not something I want to tell or make. I think there's a ton of them out there. We've seen like a lot of the best versions of them. I don't really have anything to add to them, but telling other kind of stories, that was where I was interested. So
Yeah.
finding the indie comics was important.
When we're kids, it's cool. It gets you into comics. But it's decades later, and how many, Thor storylines can you come up with? Oh, he fought the Hulk. He fought the Abomination. He fought this guy. He fought that. He saved the world a million times. Okay, what else is cooking out there? So yeah, it's a good point, and that's why this is why indie comics is kind of like our focus. Have you? So you do the pencils, inks, and colors?
No, I've worked with someone named Santi Guillen. I tried to draw this myself actually, and
Oh,
it looks so rough. It's terrible. but I worked with an artist, and for the first issue, he does the pencils, inks, and colors.
Okay.
And he lives in Argentina, and he's just a wonderful illustrator, and just he put so much into this book, and he always tried to meet me where I needed to take it, and it was just a really great collaboration with him. And so for issue 2, we did bring on a colorist, N.L. Ashworth, Lou, and they also just kind of took what Santi was kind of building in issue 1 and then just expanded on it. And I felt like every issue kind of has a different flavor. It doesn't feel like it's the same exact kind of style for every issue. It feels like it does grow as the story keeps going.
Yeah, I notice like when you get to here, like the color really kind of like becomes, like the palette really kind of changes the mood, right? It gets to be really vibrant. So what was your first entry into being published?
This book, so I was working in Hollywood on Hollywood Boulevard on a terrible talk show. I was a camera operator, and during my breaks, I was writing this book, outlining it. I never wrote a comic before, so I was kind of doing it more like a screenplay a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote this, and then I maybe was looking for an editor for 3 years. I didn't have any comic contacts. I didn't know anyone in the industry. So once I found Phil Smith, just through, messaging people, asking around, once I found Phil, he kind of showed me the ropes of making a comic and rewriting the script. And then we kind of just found Santi and dove in, and we did issue 1. And it took, I think, a year for 1 issue. And then we did a Kickstarter for issue 1 and 2. And after that, I got hit up by Sumerian Comics. They were Behemoth Comics at the time, and they really liked the book, and they wanted to publish it. So by the time it did get published, it was published through Sumerian, and they did the issues 1 to 6, and those were in comic shops.
That's flop.
And that was pretty great to get published for my first book. Extremely exciting and very cool for me, just to see it out there and having people kind of message me about it.
Yeah.
And then for the graphic novel, I did this independently. So this is all on my own again.
Right. And I noticed, so I know you hit this with a varnish mask, right, on the cover.
Yeah, with the spot UV gloss.
Right.
Just for certain characters, and some blood splatter on the cover and the logo. Really
nice. And how many of these did you is the first printing? How many copies does the first printing include?
So for the graphic novel, it's 1,000. We did 1,000 copies.
Nice. So you probably hit a good price break, right, for printing that many, right?
Yeah. I still have a ton of them in my closet, but I'm glad I do. It's good to have some stock, and I've just been taking them everywhere. I do, signings when I can at different comic shops and different shows, and just, really trying to get it out there one book at a time kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. You're gonna run out. It's good. It could be a couple of years. But you're gonna sell all of these for sure.
So Pat, you do have a Kickstarter going right now. Do you want to share with that? And it is for this graphic novel, right?
It is, yeah. So you can grab the graphic novel for $20, which I think is an amazing price for an indie book that's 176 pages.
6 comics, right?
6 comics, yeah. I kind of I felt like I maybe reached out to my audience as best I could, and it felt like the Kickstarter was a way of just reaching a whole new audience with it.
So you're looking at the Kickstarter to sell an already completed graphic novel to a new audience.
Yeah.
Right? Is that sort of your thinking for marketing wise?
It is, yeah. And I think for Kickstarters, a lot of times you have to wait for your rewards for every time. You have to wait for your rewards for a year or 2 years or whatever. So this one I was kind of okay, you're going to get your book as soon as payment clears, I'm packing and shipping. So there's no waiting. And I kind of already gave people the digital comic. I don't know if that was a good idea or not to do it before the campaign was over, because I did have some people kind of cancel their pledges.
Right.
But you live and you learn. All of it's learning. But yeah, I'm getting this out there as best I can. The Kickstarter is doing really well. It's already kind of funded, even though the book is done. But I'm just excited that because the people that are backing the Kickstarter are people, most of the people, I don't really know them. I've had some, because at this point, my friends, my family, they have this book. They've seen it. It's been around. So the fact that it's getting to some new people is pretty cool.
Yeah,
I like hearing somebody use Kickstarter in the fashion that you're doing. I'm not a fan of it at all because of the historical waiting time that always seems to get kicked forward, and there's just this sort of disheartening, feeling that's hard. And for anybody trying to get out of the gate, as a talent, independent publishing and stuff, the last thing you want to do is create any kind of contention with a possible true fan base. But the fact that you're using it as a marketing tool, I just give you a big round of applause for, and would love to follow up with you on really just how that all comes together. Because right now we're on the 18th of May. You have 19 more days to go. And like you said, you've pretty much almost doubled your goal of $1,000. And, you're creeping up to 100 backers, which, that's good. That's good. And you're also indicating that these are going to be new fans that are going to be waiting for the next thing. And you have your own website called Punch Publishing, right?
Yes, yeah. So the book is for sale on the website. The website's pretty low key. I didn't really put too much on there yet. I'm still figuring out like what is the best way to reach people. What's the best? I know you need a website, but I kind of feel like
Substack.
Substack.
We're not. Jake and I are not promoters or sponsored by Substack, but
the commercial comes underneath it.
It's I just get this feeling it could end up being an indie comic marketing pipeline. So because it's really nice now because there's about, I don't know, for about maybe like the 25 people that we really connected with at IC3, I think we're following somewhere around like maybe 6 or so. And then, of course, anybody that we've had interviews with since then, I'm doing this like get a Kickstarter. I mean, get a Substack so we can follow you. And
I'm writing it down right now. I'm going to do it.
Keep going because it's really great. John Burkett, Matt King. Oh man, I should get a running list of names and everything. But Jake has and we have Doom Mags at Substack, and and it's real chill. That's I think the real sweet spot of it right now, and as long as they don't mess around with it as Substack goes, it's not like Instagram where you feel this like aggressiveness to try to get more followers. It's the opposite. It feels like let me share. How can I share more about what I'm doing and get a game? And the sweetest spot is it's a mailing list. So, and it has a lot more tiers to it that you could then kick back to your website. So whatever comes off after the Kickstarter and the graphic novel packaging, whether you wanted to do another single floppy or however you want to commit to it, your fan base is going to rock to it. So once again, Pat, you're heading in the right direction, and I think you're doing all the right things. So
thanks a lot, man.
Seriously,
you know what? I think the weird thing about making comics is like, not only, and this is the same thing that kind of tripped me up with making movies and short films, is like you can make this incredible thing, and then you also have to be like a great seller and a marketer, and there's all this other afterwards that it really doesn't have anything to do with the creation of the book. It's very much like two separate brains that have to like come together and get this thing out there. So that's the part I don't particularly love, or I'm not as good at, is like, I have to like become like a salesman and really like pitch this thing all over the planet. But I'll try Substack. I'll check it out. That's always a good tip for a new way to reach people.
Yeah, Kurt recommends having a website so people can buy your stuff and find you. But Substack, it's interesting. Like I'm very busy. I have I teach during the week, and then I do this on the weekends. I try to do as much as I can on the weekends, drawing nights and weekends. So when you get these like kind of like updates in your mail, in your email, it could be every week or it could be every month. It could be whenever you decide to schedule them and and work with it, because sometimes I get something every week and I just like, oh, delete, I don't have time right now, but
I really, yeah.
but sometimes you're just totally in the mood, and here's a page or a couple of pages of art. Here's an update on whatever news there is. And for us, I would love it if we could just kind of update. What we do is we offer like a little chapter of writing, like some sci-fi installment from our prose storyline. But I would love it if we started just like updating our what we did this week on our show, and which one of our friends has something new out, and just have all those links. So it is like a newsletter in a way. But you should expect to take a while to build a following using that, and that's the whole point. So that when you are ready, with some kind of product or announcement, that people can then have a call to action.
Well, one of the things too, I just want to add to what Jake just said. The whole design was when we're doing our Sundays, Jake and I making Turbo Pit Fighter. There has always been an aspect of that hour plus episode where Jake will either spend 5 minutes or 45 minutes sharing these other world building story pieces and even like little doodle illustrations. So it just dawned on me, it was like, well, why, if you're digging what we're doing, let's get you to dig down with us and build from there. And Jake and I are very sharing. Like, we really want people to get with us on this,
totally.
and be a part of it in some way. We have a Ken Landgraf. We have a 6-pager for our next teaser, and then Alex Turbin. We're going to be working with him on a 10-pager. So these are the types of aspects that I help others in marketing. Is build a community. Somewhere where people, even if you haven't posted for a while because your life has been, being lived out, you jump back in and say, hey guys, sorry that was going like that, but here's some things to update you on. It's like, all right, Pat's back, that kind of thing, that should be the feeling, instead of like, screw that guy, man. He doesn't post enough,
Yeah, no, I like that kind of different lane for that. And, I do follow Matt King. So I see when he updates, and I think that's pretty cool. I do think email is probably the best way to get to people who are into your stuff. And I love like sharing the creation process. I think if you're into that stuff, it's really cool to see something, because it's always amazing when you see a sketch or a thumbnail and then you see the inks and how much it advances, but then how much it advances again once it gets colors, and then how much it advances again once it gets lettering. It's pretty incredible to see how the pages like really come to life through each process.
Well, I think the really cool thing is for you you have an established world already. Like nobody's going to sit down and be like, who the heck is this guy? The FOMO sets in immediately, which is also something I would suggest. It's like, hey, I'm rocketing into the next chapter, the next space of Popscars, or however it comes out. This is what I'm thinking about and everything, people like that. But by the way, you don't have a copy of this, you're missing out. You know what I mean? Like that to me is really good marketing. And I can't wait till Jake and I get to that point.
That page is cool because there's I put my sister's birthday for the handprints. Just like little things that you end up being able to sneak into comics are really fun. I always love I always love that kind of stuff. There's a lot of little Easter eggs in here. And, I agree. I am working on more Popscars just because so this started as a short film in
Oh,
2012.
wow.
I was making a short film called Pop, and it's a silent experimental short film. It's on the Kickstarter. You could actually check it
I was
out.
just gonna say, when I checked that out, I was like, this guy, if he's living in Hollywood, he might have some connections. So yeah, please share more.
Yeah, I mean, you would think you have connections because you live there, but so we got together and we would film this thing kind of without a script, without a direction, but with kind of there was something driving us. There was a tether to some kind of gritty Hollywood that I wanted to show, and I was making this short film with two college friends, and we would just shoot whenever the spark came. So sometimes it would be a year before we picked up and did another scene, or if somebody was moving away, I would have to kill them off or finish their part of the movie. So that's how kind of things would escalate, is like, okay, I'm moving. Okay, like let's kill your character off. But then all of a sudden that sent us on a whole new trajectory. So I was making the short film for 6 years, and not to like say I did everything, but I had help, but I kind of did everything. Like I shot it, I directed it, I kind of wrote it, I scored it, I edited it. So I just wanted to make like a very creative project where I could dive in and just get my hands on everything. And then once it was done and finished, we submitted to some film festivals, and it won the Hollywood Short Film Festival in I think 2018 or something. And I just like, it was hard to leave the world behind because there were some characters in the short film that just really stood out as being like, oh man, this is like kind of surreal, and I would love to do more with this. And once I created Pinky wasn't in the short film, but once I created this character Pinky and kind of put her with some of the other characters, it was just like, oh my God, I have to do this now. There's no choice now.
Yeah, well, this takes us to my favorite segment, and I'd like you to take us into your world now and your characters, and not just the elevator pitch, but explain kind of like how it came about, like what was the light bulb moment, and that got you off the ground, because you said you were writing this for a long time.
Yeah, the short film kind of ended, and I already had established Hollywood, the location, as being kind of like the opposite of the Hollywood you see in commercials and movies. Mine was like the gutter, kind of like street version, very dirty and gritty and filled with drugs, and just the opposite of what you're kind of used to. And so once I was kind of sketching some characters, and I drew Spider-Man in high heels, and for some reason that like triggered me, and I just kept developing that character, and it eventually turned into Pinky with the pink ski mask and the white eyes. The white eyes are kind of like an iconic comic book design, I would say. You see it with a lot of characters. So just finding that little piece of it to kind of add in and make her pop and make her very comic booky. And then adding her with this Mary character who wears kind of the Marilyn Monroe mask, and then this like some of the actors. Because when I was making this, I was in a place where I really didn't like Hollywood. I didn't like where I was working. I kind of always wanted more for myself. I wanted to, be directing movies, and as far as I got was kind of making short films. So it was kind of like I kind of made this like with a pissed off attitude a bit, just at the industry, and hearing about all the stuff with Hollywood, kind of trying to brush some stuff under the rug. Some of the behind the scenes stuff that they were doing for years that we all kind of knew about, but they just kind of got away with. For me, I wanted to call it out a bit. That's kind of what this book is. It's kind of like a middle finger to Hollywood. Even though I love Hollywood and movies, I did kind of want to call them out and just say kind of like, what the fuck are you guys doing? I don't know if I can curse on this. Sorry.
Yeah, you can.
Please.
Okay.
So the character. So is she a vigilante? Where does she come from? Like, what's the origin of what's the genesis of the main character?
So she looks like a vigilante badass, but deep down, I think she's just like a hurt person who is taking on the responsibility to take out a movie producer who is just evil, and she just knows that nobody else is going to do it. No one's going to do anything. He's going to get away with it. And the only reason she's that way is it's her father. And she knows who he is to his core. and she just knows he's a bad dude. He kind of
Oh.
abandoned her, and that's like it's not a spoiler. You kind of know she's after her father on the first page. The first page says, "I'm going to kill my dad."
Right.
But how she gets there, and he doesn't really know it's her because he kind of abandoned her, so she's a bit estranged, and she goes out to Hollywood to see him and kind of surprise him, and it really does not work out the way she plans. And he kind of reveals who he really is. He's like, a piece of shit scumbag kind of producer. And that just puts her on this warpath where nothing else in life matters. She doesn't have any other family. She doesn't have anyone else to kind of be there for her. So she's just going to take this guy out. And then that kind of leads her down a dark path where you don't know if she can kind of, right the train. She's kind of off the rails a bit. And I think that I'm going to explore that in the next part of this, is like what happens when you get what you want and it doesn't really satisfy, and how does that make you kind of lose yourself and become something else. So I do want to do more with her. I think there's a lot more where, this was a very self-contained emotional story. And I think if I do anything else with it, it has to be something different. You have to take it in a different direction. I don't want to repeat the same kind of thing. I want to be able to surprise people. Right. I think what we wanted to do with this one, we did accomplish. It felt very tight, and it's very personal to her,
Hey, Pat.
Yeah.
Pat, are you familiar with the YouTube channel Soft White Underbelly?
No.
Oh, okay. You might want to look into it. It's the photographer's name is Mark Leita. Anyways, I watch him. At first I was like, oh, this is a pretty cool, not cool. It's sad in a lot of ways. The videos are of people basically on Skid Row. So he has them come in. His studio's down on Skid Row, and he's doing these portraits of them, these full-length portraits. So on an artistic level, it really engaged me. But, working on my own stories, like the depths of characters are hard, especially since, my life has privilege in it. And I've not had, kind of what you're expressing in here. But because you're in Hollywood, or in that area there and everything, it might be interesting, to check out. Because the thing I find is, like, even when somebody is so down and out, and being in addiction or bad relationships and stuff like that, they have their own story. And that's what his channel's about. So it's kind of like, oh, you could feel bad and want to help these individuals, but listen to their stories. So when I was going through this, especially with all the, the seedy parts of Hollywood, and you have this, all this stuff in glitz and glamour. There are just so many people that are, have been broken by it. So just a suggestion.
No, that's very cool. Thank you for suggesting. And I think Hollywood is a weird place in that, like, if it's a lot of people coming out here who maybe either outgrew their hometown, their small town, or didn't fit in there, or had bigger dreams or aspirations, and they come out to Hollywood, myself included, thinking, I'm going to change things, I'm going to make it, I'm going to do this, that, the other thing. And then, like, there's a lot of reality that happens between, trying to figure it out. And a lot of the times, I think it's so easy to just get lost and just lose yourself out here. And
that's what you always hear.
Yeah, and then there's nobody there to pick you up, and that's the tough part. Is Hollywood will eat you up, spit you out, and kind of move on to the next thing. And you do see that with a lot of people. And that channel you're talking about is interesting because there's a whole kind of culture of people that are surviving kind of on the streets, and that you're right, they do have their own stories, and it's kind of, maybe it's not something you want to look too closely at because it's like kind of scary or something. But I think then you do, and it kind of humanizes someone, and it's kind of just like, oh wow, this could happen to anybody under the right circumstances,
Yeah, you're definitely right. That, and Hollywood is so notorious for eating people up and spitting them out with any kind of, like, moral consciousness and everything. But another little trigger you had for me in this was Mulholland Drive. David Lynch's,
Love David Lynch.
because I remember the first time seeing the movie in college and just being completely disoriented by it. But then friends of mine, I'm in art school, so friends of mine are like, what my roommate was actually in the film department. And so it was like always homework for him. And then he found out like it's about that. It's about people coming to Hollywood, young actresses, and trying to make it and thinking because it's just like it just creates that other depth to it. So the migration into comic book, how does that really kind of slide in? Then maybe a reversal back to trying to get somebody to turn it into a television show or movie. Is that, you feel, is still a possibility?
I mean, I think I'm open to anything. I think anything is possible. I did have some people kind of interested in doing something with this, but I'm kind of like very careful with it, where I'm scared because I think it could become cringy, and I think somebody could do a really, really bad version of this really, really easily. I think there's a fine line that you'd have to walk, and for me, I think doing the comic was just a way to blow up everything that I was trying to do with movies. Because with movies, it was like, how do you rally the troops and get everybody in the same place? How do you get the location to shoot in that place? How do you get the budget? How do you get the crew? So making the movie just was like, it felt like a very big undertaking every single time, where it was like, you really have to have so much energy to get people excited to bust their ass and come out and do your thing. And then the comic, I was like, I could do anything I want. I could blow up Earth. I could go to space. I could make a shark movie. I could do anything, and the budget stays the same. It's how much is the page rate. So for me, that was like, oh, this is kind of like a freeing feeling. And I wanted to really embrace that, even though I think this story is very grounded. I don't do anything supernatural or anything. And this is like a hardcore kind of street level, maybe a little bit of like exploitation kind of vibe, very rough and edgy story. So it was interesting to kind of learn how to use the comic format. And I'm still like, every time I'm writing something, I'm still like, how am I using this? How am I telling this story to the audience? And, giving them that page turn so that it is a big surprise when you turn that page and you see the shark eating the woman. How do you plan those moments so that it kind of hits and you're giving someone the experience? Because reading the comic, any comic, I think you dive into that world, and I love that idea of like turning the page and getting surprised by the next moment. And that's something I always kind of wanted to play with and get better at, is making it an experience for someone to read.
What about the big themes? So I perked up when you said right from the beginning, you're aware that she's going up against her father, and the father's this terrible guy, and she feels the duty somewhere, the responsibility to help society, protect. That brought to mind, Doug Mensch and the really great run that he had with Paul Gulacy on Master Kung Fu, where Shang-Chi is up against Fu Manchu. And, I think they had like a 5-year run on that, great writing and stuff. There's a lot of themes of literature. I guess Hamlet, right? The father is the problem, right?
Right.
There's some kind of, I'm not sure what message is in there, but there's something about this generational divide that we're seeing now, where a lot of people don't see eye to eye with their parents, and and what's going on in society. So how have you approached that? Like, is this in your thinking also?
It is, but I think, for me, it was the kind of the core theme is like obviously the revenge. But there was something about, because my father passed away when I was a kid. So I think I've always had some kind of issue with whatever that relationship would be. And I think it's weird. It's weird to kind of correlate the two. I'm not sure that I could, but I do believe that there was some kind of tether there where I was kind of telling the story for myself in a lot of ways, as like a kind of way to free myself from certain things. And it's like weird to say because there's no bad relationship there. There was no like. I think you get as you get older, you kind of learn to deal with certain trauma that you had as a kid, and I think everybody at this point has lost somebody and has experienced that feeling. And I think this was maybe a way for me to kind of maybe exercise some stuff out creatively that, I'm not Pinky, this stuff didn't happen to me. And, but I kind of used her in a way to kind of exercise some feelings that maybe I've carried with me on my back for a long time. And it kind of helped me get some stuff off my chest, whatever. And
so, I mean, there's, as a writer, there's always some portion that's autobiographical, whether it's subliminal or not, but the parts that you can talk about, that like it's conscious, like, I'm doing this on purpose, that's kind of like the intentional part of it. I'm reading the R. Crumb biography that just came out, and oh my God, if you want to talk about like, dysfunctional families and everything, it's insane. But we all have this cross to bear, right? And we're all getting stuff, out and expressing ourselves and taking out our angst and everything, and and we're making commentaries. So I was just wondering how you saw, like, because we're in this very polarized climate right now, and I also recognize like maybe like a little Harvey Weinstein, type of influence, in battling like a powerful producer and stuff. So I was wondering like how much of it is really trying to like message here.
I mean, it is that. It is, it's funny. I like saw Harvey Weinstein one time. I was working at Sundance as like a camera operator filming like interviews, and he walked by me, and I just remember being like, oh, that's like, you feel gross just being like close to him. And that was like before anything came out about him. I think we always kind of pointed to him as like, if you think of a sleazy producer, he's always kind of like the go-to, I guess.
Yeah.
So my character, Harry Kincaid, is, he's very much a part of that. And I didn't want to get into the weeds of commenting on any of the Me Too stuff too much, because it's like, it's not really my place. Of course, I'm all for like
justice,
people getting what they deserve. And it shouldn't be that way. That was the biggest thing, is like, it should not be that way. People should not be like putting their dreams on the line and getting like abused and stuff like that. It's just ridiculous. When you think about it, it's movies. Movies are playing pretend. And I think we put them on such a pedestal as like, they are art and you're expressing a lot of stuff. And I don't want to reduce acting as playing pretend. But, we can reduce it to that for like, some kind of argument's sake. And it shouldn't be such a serious thing where people are threatening you or, taking advantage of you over that kind of stuff. So like that kind of stuff pissed me off a lot.
Yeah.
And I think this book was a way I did get out a lot of anger and a lot of rage. And it's honestly, it's like looking back, it was hard to tap into that. I think I had to put on like 9 Inch Nails in my headphones and kind of just like get really angry to write this book. And now that it's done, I'm like, oh my God, like it's kind of a relief. And I felt like we landed the plane. And now trying to go back into it, it's like, I have a happy life. I'm married and I have a dog, and like things are good. So it's like hard to sometimes feel that anger and rage and make it like authentic for the characters, for the story.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Hey, Pat, can you speak to your scripting? Because the one thing Jake and I will always agree on in reviewing a comic is if you land on a page and there's just too much talking heads. In other words, that sequencing of just like an info dump, I think, is with a lot of people. But I'm just projecting here, so I need you to tell me the truth. A lot of this is like camera angled, like pan out, pan back. Are you feeding that into the script to?
I think I definitely am. I think when you say that, like in looking at this page, there's tons of word balloons, and I did overwrite this book, but it's my first book, so I'm allowed to do kind of whatever. But I did.
But the balance, the balance is very well done. I have yet to hit a page where it's like, I'll be okay. You know, even that skip. It's like, no. I mean, I might not read or go that deep right now as I'm, like I say, cruising through. But I'm like, okay, well, these two people, you know what I mean? Like, I'm getting it. I'm still in the flow.
Yeah, I think that was the thing is I think I heard the characters saying a lot in this, and the banter and the back and forth, I really did want to include some lines, and I didn't want to underwrite it. And now I'm kind of trying to like maybe underwrite some of my stuff just at looking back. But this was like working with Santi a lot. I do have the camera angles in mind. That was my favorite part of filmmaking was what's the shot? How do you set up the cool shot, and how do they kind of work in sequence with each other? But Santi brought a ton to this, like that overhead shot of the like apartment complex with the road there. Like that's a beautiful panel. He laid it out like that. I didn't have anything to do with the layouts. That was all him. I kind of like had some ideas in mind, and if there was a very specific shot, maybe I would sketch it and send it to him. But he brought so much to the flow.
Well, this page in particular was the script for this page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 panels. I think narration, dialogue. Make sure it has this effect. Is that what your style is?
Yeah, I think it was, but I think he's the one that split the page with that. That was his choice, and I thought like beautiful. Because this page makes it unique compared to all the other pages. I don't think we have a lot of like full vertical panels.
Yeah, it's a great move. It's a really phenomenal move.
But I do have like the beats that I'm trying to hit per page and the different perspectives and angles I'm trying to show. And I think a lot of it does come from filmmaking, but I'm very much aware that comics are the freeze frame, and I didn't want to make this and say, oh, this is because this is supposed to be a movie or a film. Like I really wanted to make a comic. I love comics just as much or more. I think they're extremely special, and I think you read this and it's like becomes like a personal thing. And I think movies are a communal thing. You watch a movie with an audience, you read a comic by yourself, and I think creating that, you have to kind of feed into that. You have to give comics what they need. And I'm still learning that, but this was a lot of fun figuring this out. And I rewrote this a lot, and I kind of spent a lot of time outlining this. Like I would say years. I spent a couple of years outlining this before we moved forward. So to me, it was kind of fully baked once we were like, let's go, let's make this,
Nice.
Yeah. So the next segment that Kurt likes to get into, it's my least favorite segment. Because I just like making pages. I try to.
Are you going into the future of comics? Because we haven't done the promotion part of it. We're past the promotion of the future of comics.
Right. So, because I always just try to disappear into content and making pages and stuff, but there's the business aspect, and then there's also like all these different things that people are trying out now because distribution is changing and technology is changing. So, do you have any thoughts about what could be in this industry?
I mean, if I don't really. I hope that we stay away from AI as much as possible. I hope people don't put AI art in books. I hope people don't use it to write. I hope that these are a way for people to get stories out that they need to. I don't want comics to just become like, oh, I'm just producing this because I need to like get stuff out. Yeah, I really don't want that at all. That's like that fear. But when I look at the landscape of stuff, I see that there's a ton of indie creators who are doing incredible work. And I think they're still finding their audience. I think a lot of them are maybe not as seen. And I think, Image to me at this point is as big as Marvel and DC in terms of like the comic community. I think they're, everything that they're putting out, people just grab based on the cover. And, I'm not sure, I haven't really kept up with Image, like the titles. I used to, and I love a lot of their books. But they feel like they've graduated to being like one of the biggest publishers, obviously. And So from my perspective and where I'm at, I kind of want to stay kind of underground and indie and build up a small following of like really hardcore dedicated people who like love this stuff. Like I don't want people who just like are passive about it. I want people who are like very psyched about Pinky and like what I'm doing. And of course, we all want that. We all want the people who like love this stuff and need more. Distribution is the thing that trips me up every time. That's like that post-production process and marketing and all that stuff is absolutely my least favorite part of this whole experience. I guess the answer would be get with the publisher. But that's hard too. I think there's caveats and pros and cons to any lane you go down. So I think it's good to try to experiment and see, what are the lanes and what does that mean and what do you get from that. But I hope that people keep making cool shit. That's like my biggest hope is I hope people keep making really passionate stuff. And it does feel like we're getting a lot of great books that are coming out. But I feel like you said before, I think Kurt, you said like, how many Thors have we seen? How many Batmans have we seen? How many times can we reinvent that stuff to where it's like it matters? I don't know, because I love those characters. But like, I can't pick up the new stuff. I can't keep up with it because I don't care. I feel like there's no stakes. I want stuff with stakes. I want stuff with like, are we going to make it through this alive? And there might be a chance we don't. You always know that your heroes are never going to really bite the dust, and even if they do, they get brought back. I'm not the biggest fan of like the mainstream stuff anymore. As I make stuff, I really like the indie stuff, the gritty stuff, the stuff with like the creator's vision. I really love seeing what somebody made and put together and put themselves fully into the project. I love that stuff.
Yeah. I noticed that you walk kind of like a line as far as the, adult nature of content. What was your, some people ask like, what's your target audience or whatever, but what's your feeling on that? Because, comics are for adults and for kids, and the whole thing about like the whole Spider-Man and Thor thing is like there is some little kid somewhere that's picking up their first Thor, and
it's not for me anymore. Yeah, it becomes not for me anymore. You're right. It's for that next generation of audience. Totally.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off, but I agree with you. Yeah. And I wanted to lean into the adult stuff as much as possible. Like maybe I think Tarantino kind of was a big influence, of course, with Hollywood Revenge kind of thing. And I'm a big movie buff. I love old films. I love horror. And most of the stuff I love is edgier and, grittier, Clockwork Orange, kind of, the fringe of storytelling. I don't really love the middle so much, but I love like what's on the edges. And that's kind of what I wanted to do with this. Making a comic is such a huge investment. You guys both know this. Whether it's time, whether it's money, whether it's, whatever. So if you're going to make something, I just felt like I didn't want to go halfway. I wanted to go all the way with it. And, I have some other books that are for kids that are, more accessible, but I wanted to push myself to tell something like fucking crazy, where if you read this book, you're like, holy shit, like this is nuts. I've never read anything like this. I kind of wanted to find that for myself, challenge myself to go really far with it. And I felt like we played a careful balance because there's some like, pretty hardcore content, and we're talking about some stuff that is real and it affects real people and has been like a big issue in Hollywood and like abuse and stuff. And like that stuff, I don't really love to, who likes to read that or like go there. So I did want to do it in a way that, is not too gratuitous. Mm-hmm. I would say it's definitely gratuitous, but there were certain moments where it could have gone way further, and I didn't let it. I kind of reined it in because then it becomes something else, and then it becomes like I don't want to exploit the victim kind of thing. I didn't want to do that, and I think it would be easy to, and I think a lot of stuff may fall into that where it goes too far, and maybe it didn't need that one scene. It could have been like it could have been just as good without it. So that was always a conscious thing was, yeah, this is an adult book. It's extremely graphic. It's hardcore. It's violent, sexual. But also, I think if you really look at it, there's nothing that goes too far. It's maybe suggested and talked about, but
Yeah.
visually we kind of withheld, and
Yeah.
because I think that becomes gross, there's some things that overstep.
Yeah, we're big fans of the B movie genre, and we've talked a lot about exploitation films, and the reality that when people made films that did go too far, they would get raided by the cops and the religiosos and everything, and they would get shut down, and they would find like the projectionists and stuff. They were like arrest the projectionists. So what happened was the movie makers, especially Russ Meyer, they actually had tame tamed down content as far as what was on the screen, and then there was still a lot happening in your mind. And so the joke of it was like, I was telling Kurt, like, the real exploitation going on is the viewer, because you look at this movie poster and you think it's gonna be, oh my god, wild teens on the loose, and then you get in, and then you watch the actual movie and it's like, maybe not so many, yeah. So it's like the hype and delivering, and the thing about like low budget B movies is like the poster is going to be the best part about it, and then like everything else is just the reality of low budget movies, and and what could get done, and what actors are willing to do and stuff like that.
So Pat, we've been 50 minutes with you, and I'll tell you right now, I think a sideline job you could pick up is being a comic book editor, because pretty much the way you answered all the questions was from visual storytelling perspective. I mean, it would be so obvious in a duh. Somebody in the comments is going to go, duh, Kurt, because of your film background, going from it. But the way you articulate it really excites me to maybe reach out to you and send you a little something and just get your feedback. But you could give us your feedback on the Turbo Pit Fighter, because that's what the Indie Exchange is really all about, is exchanging ideas and the temperature of the industry. And it was great to Matt King introduced us, so he's a big a friend of the channel, we were able to and my biggest heartbreak about IC3 was it was too short.
I think so too. I think we needed 2 days there.
You know what I mean? Even if the second day is just all of us hanging out in a room. Yeah. You know what I mean? And let people come in and bug us if they want to buy a comic. But I want to hang out with, I've got at least 25 people. I'd love to hang out at a table and just throw things around and hear what's happening and go from there. But Jake and I love getting feedback on any level, any aspect, feedback, you guys think about this. And so please let us, we would love to hear what your take on us.
Yeah, man, I really did enjoy Turbo Pit Fighter a lot. I think you're playing with a badass female character, which I immediately was drawn to. I think the biggest thing I see in comics is it's all white dudes, white heroes, and part of my mission is I want to tell different heroes. I want to expand the landscape, because I think you could, for every Batman and Superman, there could be that female version. And not saying that needs to be a female version of every character, but I just feel like that's an underrepresented, like, great character that, let's see more stories where the female is like ruthless and just kicks some ass, because, we don't see that too often. So I love the kind of like Judge Dredd kind of heavy metal vibe of this. It's definitely gritty and gory, and kind of checks a lot of boxes for me. I do love how you guys are kind of doing this artwork. It's edgy. And are you guys sharing art duties? Is that what's going on with this book?
Pencils versus inks, yeah.
Pencils versus inks.
Well,
so it is like very much a teammate.
Yeah, I mean, Kurt is really doing a form of coloring, but he's just doing the whole grayscale, spectrum, But it's he's inking and then he's toning or whatever you want to call it, and then we're working out the lettering, in this kind of like shared role too. So
yeah, I think the gray tones add a lot to. I see, some black and white comics that look really nice, but then when you add those gray tones in, it adds a lot of depth and shape and proportion to stuff that I really dig. And I just love the concept, like a turbo pit fighter. Just like it's like a fighting comic. It's kind of brutal, and I think you're taking advantage of like some of the best parts of comics, like action based, not getting too in the weeds on kind of setup and stuff like that. I think it's pretty rad. Yeah, I'm definitely interested to see like what are your plans with this, like as a big picture for Turbo Pit Fighter?
Oh, it's going to be a television series, if not a movie first.
Yeah, I want it to be a low budget TV series like Logan's Run. No,
this is all just slowing us down to the end. Come on, somebody.
Seriously though, we're just trying to finish issue number 1, and along the way, we put out teaser number 1, then we put out teaser number 2, and this calendar year we're hoping to put out an anthology that has the third part of the teaser with some other stories. We have some other contributors, and it's been great to find some like-minded souls that are like now giving us pinups and doing sequential runs. So it's a lot of fun, and we're we have the Substack where we're exploring the entire world and the prequel world, in text and prose with a couple of spot illustrations. So it's growing and growing and growing, but it just started out as one comic, and that's still the primary focus where we use the Sunday meetings every week on the podcast to try to make the progress.
And so where did you guys kind of come up with the concept of like this gladiatorial, how do you say that word? You know what I mean? Like the gladiator kind of fights where it's kind of maybe like way more brutal and gruesome than you're kind of used to seeing. And where did that kind of concept come from?
Yeah, well, the concept is because this is what's really going to happen.
Yeah, like we're heading that way anyway. This is going to be televised. You're going to have to fight to the death, yeah.
Well, actually, the gladiator concept, it's funny because I looked into it a little bit when I was doing like a lesson for my students. The gladiator thing is, and as it relates to females in particular, it was kind of like this big spectacle that, society kind of evolved out of, and it was then, looked upon badly because, it was too brutal and gory, and, do we really want to be doing this and passing this down from generation to generation? And that's why the actual gladiator fights to the death went away. I mean, they used to fight humans, animals, they would put slaves in there, basically, no way that they were ever going to survive. It was just a way of, executing.
Entertainment.
Right, entertainment, and that seems to be a commentary that we grew out of that. And now, with everything I see going on, with politics and society and technology, I see it kind of going back. And this idea was conceived of in the 90s, really, and we kind of put it on pause for a long time. But it could not be more timely, to bring it back, especially the idea of the the single family becoming, a multi-trillionaire family and literally combining every industry, and just acquiring everything until they can take over the government and the government becomes superfluous. So, all that's happening, we are going to have this big megapocalypse and, the wasteland. But I would say the most direct, honest answer is like, I was just so infatuated with Road Warrior and Mad Max that I was just inspired to do something, and looking at it differently, like you said, a female protagonist, kind of making it a little more realistic, and taking on, just trying to imagine like a Mad Max world where a lot of the ideas that we're seeing today are incorporated. Like I always told Kurt, the thing about Mad Max that seemed unrealistic was that they're only fighting over gas, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it can't be the only thing they're fighting over, right? They were trying to illustrate a point, back in the late 70s. So I guess it's the same thing we're trying to illustrate, except we're trying to take everything into account and just think about as many different aspects as possible. But as far as the comic, it's just we just want to present as much violence and action and snappy dialogue and kind of like B-movie melodrama, and take it as far as we can until we die.
Yeah, I do love that though. I love that you're not kind of getting caught in any weeds. You're just kind of like running at like full speed with it. And I love like the Thunderdome vibe. Like Mad Max has just been such a staple for, I think, all creators in some fashion. I have a book called No H2O, and I call it like Mad Max for kids. Okay. I think Mad Max has been like just like a major influence, especially the old ones. I feel like the first one is kind of like that almost exploitation vibe, where it's like not bad filmmaking, but it's not refined. And I think that's what I like about it is it's just so great. Just grabbing a camera and just like blowing cars up and stuff. And
right. And it spawned its own generation. It spawned its own genre, right?
Totally. Totally.
Like Kurt gave me this book as a present, it's like this huge book, like of
encyclopedia of every post-apocalyptic movie ever made up to 2023.
Oh my god! And they probably all wear shoulder pads, I bet.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Right, and they say right up in the intro, like like basically this is all about the Mad Max world, the Mad Max thing. Everyone's trying to like reach that ideal, and sometimes they just have a fraction of the budget, so they're never going to do it. But there's so much fun along the way, and there's all these different spins on it. The zombie thing kind of like took over after a while, but to me, I'll watch any movie that's as bad of a clone as it is. I'll just watch it, just
same.
Try to see if there's any kind of like fun to it,
something you could like pull out from it.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I think this is great, and I do agree that like we probably are headed towards this kind of vibe at some point, because I'm working on Popscars Volume 2.
Yeah.
And I'll just kind of spoil something that I am bringing back, kind of like you guys, like public executions. I think those are not far down the line, where it becomes like, let's bring back the guillotine or something of that effect and make it like a big spectacle kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think that's
because it's not about the person. Right, you're not just killing the person. Like, you could have done that with one bullet in private a long time ago. It's about you're killing the people. Well, you're subjugating the people, because when they're saying this, you're saying like this could happen to you, and you're going to sit here and watch this, and you're not going to do anything about it. Right, that's the main thing.
Yeah, so we're heading in a good direction. It sounds like the future is bright.
Yeah, well, it is therapeutic, for us creators, it's therapeutic, and maybe for the watchers, they can take something away. I mean, at least it's escapism for the time that you're watching it. But then, when you see the real news and the real world and the real, social media, it's just, it's like, wow, it's
like nothing you can do. Go ahead.
Yeah. Going back to your original point about making Popscars, Pat, was you're the kind of like releasing of the tension, the trauma, the anxiety that builds up on so many different points coming at us. Childhood, dreams of going into Hollywood and making it in, and then just the personal buildup and frictioning, that goes that, Jake and I are both art teachers. Jake's full time. I do a lot of workshops and one-on-one, but I always believe it should be made from the interior that you're existing in right now, and then being able to see it reflect back to you, and then being able to like outmaneuver future catastrophes. Not saying that Turbo Pit Fighter is to steer us away from all of this, but it is to give Jake and I a sense of release from there. But then anybody else that would come along and be like submersive to it, and then yeah, we got to beat this thing. I think that's a huge thing about art. That should always maintain its presence.
Right, kind of rallies people.
Yeah, right. The resistance, right? It's really about the resistance. You talk about Star Wars and the Rebel Force, and with Mad Max, it's really just about survival and everything. But I took it upon myself. Kurt kind of pushed me into it to write just prose and develop the world to how it gets to this point. Because most movies, that first minute, they just show like some news reports, and it's like they show a mushroom cloud, and then the next thing you're in the wasteland. So it's like, all right, well, we are gonna take a look at it, because it is so gradual in real life, but it is also heading towards this really dark place. So I really got into it, and we have this timeline from like 2100 to about 2250, let's say, like maybe 150 years in there. And there was a little bit of like suspending disbelief, like we're gonna have like human enhancement, and we're gonna have people that live like over 150 years, and we're gonna have some kind of like special supernatural-ish, not supernatural, but like unlocking science's mysteries,
like evolution kind of thing.
Yeah, I do believe that the quantum mechanics is going to revolutionize physics and engineering and everything in the not too distant future. I think a lot of people feel that there could be a lot of different things possible as far as like matter and energy, but I'm just taking all that into fiction. And you want to entertain people. You want to make it too sciencey, but you also want to like have some like basis in reality where people say, "Oh, that's a cool concept." The flying cars. That's going to happen. The just energy. Radioactivity. All these questions, like what do we do with all these things? So that, and then whenever you get stuck, just make it like campy,
Yeah.
Campy, and just have a violent interruption, and then you get out of anything.
So we definitely have come to the end of this first interview with Pat O'Malley, and we're definitely going to have you back, because what an incredible time to share and get to know you. And if anything, we'll see you in the next IC3. But we're going to give you a little bit of time just to share, where people can find, Popscars and you, on the worldwide interwebs.
Yeah, thanks, guys. This has been awesome to talk. I was really looking forward to this. Even when we kind of traded books and said, "Oh, we're going to jump on in a few months," I was really looking forward to it. So I appreciate the time and the interest in my work. It does mean a lot, and I think it helps keep you going. But I'm at Punch Publishing on most things. Instagram, punchpublishing.com is where the book is. It currently is on Kickstarter. You could grab the graphic novel for $20. I have bootleg toys for sale there that are really cool with different art, different weapons from each issue, and
oh yeah, right. And how about your other book? You have two other books that you mentioned here.
Yeah, I have the Jurassic Parkour 4, which is available as an add-on on the Kickstarter, and that's kind of like a love letter to Ninja Turtles in a way, but they're dinosaurs who do parkour, and the story is that they failed. They let the girl die, and spoiler, and then they retire, and it's kind of about seeing if you could be a hero even after you're a major failure, if you still have it in you to kind of fight back and become a hero. So it's like a Saturday morning cartoon vibe, very silly, very like funny, not as serious at all as Popscars, very different world. But it's fun. I love it. We've been working on that one for a long time. So to have that one finished is really cool. And then No H2O, which unfortunately is sold out right now. I'm working on maybe doing another print run of that. And that's more for kids, younger audience. It's kind of Mad Max for kids. It's like, what happens if aliens took all of Earth's natural water? How could you survive? And it's about a family trying to reunite across the Atlantic desert. So there's no water, and they're driving this Jeep, and they have a water machine that makes these little water cubes, but they're being chased by these like scavengers on quads. And it's very fun and very Mad Maxy, but it's also like the stakes are different. It's very much about family and being there for each other when the world falls apart.
Right.
So just trying to play in different genres and different characters and seeing what I could come up with. And so these are my, those are my 3 books I have so far. And I'm definitely working on some new things that I think you guys will like. In particular, especially there's one that feels almost adjacent to Turbo Pit Fighter,
Mm-hmm.
where the characters could be friends and get a beer after they like kill a bunch of people.
Nice.
But yeah, I'm very excited. I think the future is looking fun, at least for me. I have some really cool projects in the works that I just love making comics now. And now that I kind of have broken the barrier of like, I know how to do this, I know what to look for, I can edit it and I can put it together. I'm really excited for the stuff that's coming up. I felt like these 3 were like cutting my teeth. And now I'm looking forward to, taking it further and seeing what else I can put out.
Great, and it's also great that you can get this off the ground, and you don't have to do the art yourself. You can find people, and you're a manager basically of the whole project, in the publishing project. Great job. It was really cool meeting you, and can't wait to see the next update when you have something else to come out with. And if we don't talk to you before the next IC3, then I guess we'll see you there. But welcome back anytime.
Thank you, Jake.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kurt.
And
I appreciate that.
You're welcome. And all links will be down in the description. Well, with that being said, Jake, you want to take us out?
Yeah, so people should know that you could check out our other series. We have the Comics That Influence, where we do flip-throughs of the best comics we can get our hands on. You've just watched our Indie Creator Exchange and our regular weekly installments of Making Turbo Pit Fighter happen every Sunday, 10 o'clock Eastern Time. You can catch us on Instagram, or you can see our fuller screens on YouTube live, or catch the update anytime thereafter. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you all next Sunday, if not sooner.
All right, Jake, I'll see you next Sunday.
All right.